Hi everyone, and welcome back to the online Ableton lessons. Last time out we were looking at making beats, and today we're going to look at one of the most important aspects of songwriting, which is song structure. Also feel free to check out the notes, chords, bass lines and melodies sections as well if you'd like to learn a little bit more about them. So, why do we actually need structure in the first place? Well, maybe we're trying to tell a story, and that can be done with lyrics, but it can also be done with music. For example, you could use some minor chords to create like a sad atmosphere in the verse, and then in the chorus, when you want things to be a bit more uplifted, you could add in more instruments, make it a bit louder, and maybe use some major chords. Another important thing to think about is we want the audience to be interested, and we want them to keep listening, so we have to add in a bit of variety and change things up in order for that to happen. If we had the same thing, the same drum beat, the same bass line, and the same chords going on for 4 minutes without any changes, people would probably get a bit bored. So in the next few sections, we're just going to look at some examples of songs and see how they change their instrumentation and what they do with their lyrics in order to keep things exciting and tell a story. Okay, so the first song we're going to look at is Bury It by Chvrches. It's got a pretty typical pop structure: intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, break, back to the verse, and repeat. So, using this little tool, we can kind of hop around and listen to each part and kind of see how they use music and lyrics to build anticipation, keep us interested, and tell a story. So let's have a listen and see what's going on. Okay, so in that intro, they're just kind of setting the scene, if you know what I mean. They haven't brought in all the instruments yet, they've only just got one synth line that's playing the main melody that we're going to hear throughout the tune. So just a pretty simple intro. Let's see what's going on in the verse. Okay, so they're keeping that same melody that they introduced in the intro, but they're not really changing around any of the chords because they've brought in the drums, they've brought in the lyrics just to kind of beef it up a bit more. And with the lyrics, they're just kind of setting the scene for the story, really. Let's hear what's going on in the pre-chorus. So the reason we have a pre-chorus is to kind of build a bit of anticipation for the chorus, because it might be a bit odd going straight from a verse into a chorus. You notice how they've changed the chords and they've added a few different lyrics just to kind of advance that story. So if we had the intro and we had the verse and we just had another verse that was exactly the same as the first verse, it might be a little bit boring. So that pre-chorus just keeps us interested with a few of those different chords. Now let's hear what they do in the chorus. Okay, so the chorus is kind of the main part of your song. It's the part of the song that you want everyone to remember. So a good idea for your lyrics in the chorus is to keep it simple and make sure it's something that people can sing along with. Musically, what they've done is you notice how the melody is a bit higher, so it just has a little bit more impact, and it's just designed to keep people remembering what it is and make it a little bit more exciting. So after that, we've got the break. So a break is kind of basically what it says. It's just a way to kind of break apart the sections between a chorus and a verse, because it might just sound a bit odd and a bit kind of sudden and uncomfortable if you just jump straight from your verse to your chorus and then jump straight back into the verse. So using this little tool, you can have a play around, just selecting any of these choruses, verses, and just hear what they're kind of doing. So something that might be interesting to try at home is to see what it sounds like if you just play all the verses together. It probably wouldn't be that interesting, and if you just play all the choruses together, it probably wouldn't be that interesting either. So that's why it's important to have all these different sections between each other. Okay, so this next one is the fantastic A Tribe Called Quest with their song Award Tour. Now, it's a little bit different than hip hop to pop music because usually in hip hop there'd be a lot more lyrics and you'd be a bit more focused on the rap maybe than it would be on the music with pop, if you know what I mean. So in this one, they've got 6 verses, all with different lyrics in them telling a story, and then they got these 3 hooks here. So it's a very simple song. There's only kind of 5 elements to it that you can listen out for. There is a drum, is a bass line, there's a little organ that plays, there's something that sounds a bit like a guitar sample, and then there's the lyrics as well. So let's see if you can listen out musically what changes between the hook, which would be the chorus, and the verse. But we're going to start with the intro and let's see what they do there. Okay, so they've got that little organ line and they've got a few little drum bits in there, but they don't have the full drums in there. Can you hear what they're missing? So they're probably missing a kick drum, but they're going to bring that in the hook. Let's hear what they got. Okay, so they go straight into the hook just to kind of like get straight into the song, and they bring in all the bass elements. So they bring in the bass guitar and they bring in the kick drum that they didn't have in the intro. They've also got that little sampled guitar riff that you can hear going over the top of the organ, and that actually gets taken out in the verse. So let's see if you can hear the difference musically, what's going on between the hook and the verse.
People give you ear, so I be sublime. It's enjoyable to know you in the concubines.
So can you hear they've taken out that little kind of guitar riff thing they had? And that's just to kind of create a little bit more space for the rap to happen. And it just creates a bit of a difference between the hook and the verse. So, like I said, hip-hop, a little bit different to pop music. More focus on the rap and the lyrics. And then the hook is just there to kind of like have a part that people can sing along in and to have a part that will get stuck in people's heads. So, let's see what's next. Okay, so this next one is Ni Ten Ichi Ryu by Photek, and it's a pretty good example of song structure in electronic music or drum and bass. So they don't have any lyrics in this really, but they still manage to tell a story, but they do that through sound. So let's have a listen to what they're doing. Okay, so they don't have any lyrics kind of telling us what's going on there or explaining a story to us, but we still kind of get an idea for a narrative, if you know what I mean. So they've got these distant, ghostly sounding drums, and that just kind of builds a bit of a spooky atmosphere. So it's an important lesson in what kind of sounds you use can really help you convey a message that you're trying to get along. So let's see what happens in the A part. So they use something that's very common in electronic music here, which is called layering, which is starting out with an idea, like maybe say a little percussion track like we had in the intro, and then building on that by putting in a bass line, and then building on top of that again by putting in more drums. So it's just kind of like constantly layering things on top of each other. And a lot of dance music is built in this way by layering things on top and then taking things out and then layering things back on top again. So let's hear what happens in the B section. Okay, so they've added in some vocal samples and kind of varied up the drums a little bit. It would probably be a bit of a boring song if that A section just continued all the way on and it was exactly the same. So it's a good lesson in like how to vary things up by taking things in and taking things out, and that way you can kind of create a bit of interest and variation in your tunes. All right, let's have a listen to the next one. Okay, so this last one is I Feel Love by Donna Summer, which like is an old school disco track from the 70s. The structure is pretty similar to a pop tune: intro, pre, verse, chorus, pre, and verse. So let's hear what they do with the music in terms of bringing things in and bringing things out to keep the audience interested. So this is what we call a fade in. And if you're ever looking for a way to begin a tune, you can just do what they've done here and gradually increase the volume of one of the parts. It's a pretty easy way to just start things off. Okay, so they've got a pretty exciting pre-verse section here, which is where they've just brought everything in, apart from the vocals, obviously. That's probably just to kind of make it exciting and give the song a bit of an impact as it comes in straight away. So let's hear the difference. What have they taken out when they go into the verse? So you can hear they've taken out some of those big, long synth lines, and they've brought the vocals in, and that's to just kind of give the vocals a bit more space to be heard and give them a bit more of an emphasis. Okay, so her vocal line is slowly building up to the chorus here. They don't actually have a pre-chorus section that you might see in other pop songs. The only thing that kind of leads into that are her words right at the end, which just vocally lead into that big chorus. So let's hear what instruments they bring into the chorus to make it really stand out. Okay, so they've got those backing vocals in and they have brought in a new synth line. The bass line and the drums kind of remain the same, but they've added a lot of emphasis by just bringing in those big sounds. Also, lyrically, they've repeated the lyrics and they just kept it really simple, which is a really good idea for a chorus. This is just this section is just a way to transition from our verse or from our chorus, sorry, back into our verse. They've just tried to keep it a little bit interesting by adding a few minor chords in there just to kind of spice it up a little bit, and then we go back into the verse. there is a bit of a difference here in the second verse between the first one. They've got some more backing vocals in there. It's just another example of how they keep things interesting, how they keep changing it up just to keep the audience interested. So I hope you've learned a little bit there about song structure, and it is a really important part of making a song, and the main thing to take away from it is just to bring things in and bring things out to keep the audience interested, and make sure your choruses have lyrics that repeat, that are easy to sing, and that have an impact and that stick in people's heads. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that.